You're listening to the Entrepreneur Ignited podcast, where we aim to simplify online business so you can make more money. Now, here's your host, Derek Gehl.
Welcome to the Entrepreneur Ignited podcast. This is your host, Derek Gehl, and today I have a very special guest. Now, I met this incredible woman for the first time quite a few years back, actually. I believe it was one of my seminars, and then we reconnected a few years ago in a mastermind group we were both part of. Now, this mastermind group was packed with very successful online entrepreneurs. But when she got up and spoke, I was blown away by her knowledge, by the internet marketing strategy she had developed and was sharing. And, I could really see she thought about internet marketing in a different way. She got to a different level than the good majority of people in that room. And today, we're going to dig deep into a topic that she's an absolute expert and industry authority in. And this topic is actually what is probably, I would say, the largest source of cheap targeted traffic that I know of at the moment, and that is Facebook. So with that said, I'd like to welcome Laura Betterly to the show. So Laura, thank you very much for being here today.
Oh, well, thanks for inviting me. I've always, I first met you at one of your events. So, I'm a bit of a fan to start with. In fact, my husband loves you. I was like, I'm doing Derek's podcast. He's like, really? I was like, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, for us, it's we've been following you since you were Corey's, success story, and
Yes.
I know you passed on that whole thing, and for us in internet marketing, I mean, you're talking about like the Godfather, the founders of, maybe we took things on a different tangent, but I don't think we would have been doing any of the things that we're doing without you and your predecessor. So, we're honored.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm very flattered. And that said, I mean, what you've done over the last decade has been incredible as well. Now, you've got a pretty amazing story. And, I started digging into that and going even pre-internet. And so how did you go from a guitarist in punk bands in New York in the 70s and 80s to, taking a company public to now, being an industry authority in so many places, having multiple online give us the story. How did this all happen?
Well, the simple answer to it is that, as an artist, I didn't starve particularly well, So, getting done playing a gig at 4 a.m., with drunk people going, hey, I never saw a girl who could play lead, yeah, and your point. And and having to like lift my own equipment and whatnot. And now it's like 6 a.m. and, I made $20. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. That's just not my thing. Now, it doesn't mean that I don't play. I still play, and I ended up working in the music business, and I was backstage at Madison Square Garden, years later, and, for a bunch of different gigs and whatnot. But I just woke up after that and actually went ahead and got an accounting degree. So you want to talk about faith.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was really great because although I don't necessarily practice as an accountant, I did spend a certain amount of years working in public accounting. And it gives me a BS barometer for when I'm looking at numbers. It also gives me a realistic way of looking at what's working and what's not. You know what I mean? I can look at, somebody gives me a proposal or says this, that, and the other, and I can use the numbers as if it was another language. But, that was not particularly fulfilling for me as an individual, especially as an artist, working on numbers all day long. And this is before QuickBooks. So we did it in ledgers,
Yeah.
And, we had to make sure things, debits equals credits and, blah, 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 blah. But it was a great background. And in the late 80s, early 90s, I actually then computerized the business that I was working in. And I actually had a company, my first company, what it did was computerized businesses. So I would take people from hand systems and actually computerize them. And that was, like I said before, QuickBooks. So it was really profitable because you'd have to put in a local area network. I mean, the software and the hardware alone was, tens of thousands of dollars. And then, I'd go in and I'd roll in all the books from hand in and then do the training. So it was very, very profitable to do that. But at some point, as PCs started to be, born and software came, that business really was, was shut down because technology just was way ahead of it and was not needed anymore. And I took a little time off at that point, and had a few kids, and then I kind of, reapproached everything in the late '90s online, and I took my music love and my understanding of numbers and marketing and whatnot, and started the company that developed the first dual MP3 player for DJs. And we had a free player and had 6 million downloads and traveled the world with that. And that was during the .com boom, where people throwing money if you had an idea. It's like, I have a sock, here's $1 million.
Oh, yeah. That's what we call the good old days.
Yeah, exactly. So, that's kind of how that happened. So there you go.
Okay. And so that's what got you online. Now, give me a quick timeline. I mean, you just sort of ended there at about 2000. So what's happened over the last 15 years? Because, I mean, now you're everywhere, right? You've got agencies. You've done multiple product launches with huge names. Mike Filsame, Andy Jenkins, Ryan Dice. You've been involved with all these products. You've become a local marketing expert. You've become a Facebook marketing expert. Like, where do you find the time?
Oh, well, I'm a geek. I just like doing the stuff I do. But it's really funny. I guess I'm really good at predicting markets before they happen. Mm-hmm. So, and that's kind of looking at what happened and look at what's coming forward. So 2000, right? We do 99, 2000, 2001. We do the whole music biz thing, and that was huge. I mean, there's pictures of me online with Ice-T and at the Warped Tour and with Nile Rodgers, who's the band Chic. I mean, he wrote "We Are Family" for Sister Sledge. He produced Madonna's "Like a Virgin." He produced David Bowie's "Let's Dance," the B-52. I mean, on and on and on. And he's on our board of directors. And I get to go to Connecticut and hang out at his house. In fact, there's a really bad story about how his dog Dudley was humping me while I was trying to get him to sign the paperwork. But we're not going to get into that here.
That's another interview.
Yeah, that's another interview for another time. But after I left, and one of the reasons why I left was it just got too corporate for me. I'm an entrepreneur. I can't be in an organization where I have a product manager of Tuesday downloads or whatever. Yeah. It was just ridiculous. And when I did an analysis of what really made money with PCDJ, it wasn't the software sales. It made money, but it wasn't as profitable as renting out the email list to people who liked, snowboards and, just kind of DJ lifestyle stuff.
Yep.
Right. So that made a lot of money. Software, not so much. I mean, it's still in business. It still makes money, but that's where the real money was.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, so with all the people I know in the .com world, because remember, being the president of PCDJ did give me the ability to reach and know a lot of people at that time. Mm-hmm. And so I thought about it, and I had a friend who had a software company, and he had a news list called WinXP. And this is before the canned spam laws, okay? There was no law about email.
Yeah.
And I said to him, I was like, Stu, how much would it be for me to buy this list? And he goes, $250,000. And I was like, okay. And I'm like, I don't have $250,000. I'm not sure how I'm going to buy this. But what I did was then I said, well, wait a minute. I could find somebody else who wants to buy the list, and I could get paid in a copy of the list. And what I ended up doing is I found somebody with a similar list, and I brokered a trade, and I ended up getting a copy of both lists, and I ended up with the largest database in the country.
Wow.
With no cash.
Yeah.
And then I started mailing, and we started making money. It was crazy. Like, I remember we had a spyware offer, and the subject line was, "They know where you've been." Okay? It was brilliant. And, I went to the movies and I'd come back and we made 30 grand.
Yeah.
But the problem I was having is that I was getting shut down, even though these were lists that had permission and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to tell a story about a single mom who was just trying to do ethical email marketing and is being shut down by internet service providers, despite the fact that there was no laws being broken.
Yeah.
And that ended up on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. And it was a different spin because I made a joke, okay? What happened was the reporter said something like, some people say all commercial email is spam. How do you respond? And I said, well, if that's the case, call me the spam queen.
Whoops.
And he did, with 30 column inches and a picture. But, I laughed all the way to the bank. I mean, we closed so many deals. And that next couple of months, it took me 6 months to deliver all the service that was bought during that time. And it allowed me to speak in front of the Federal Trade Commission and actually help draft the Can-Spam Act and whatnot. But there was a point in 2002, 2003, where we realized with blocking and filtering, it didn't matter. You had to change the way you did email, and we still wanted to get traffic. And that is when my partner became certified for Google for pay-per-click. Mm-hmm. And so we used Google AdWords, man, and we got really, really great at that. And that agency grew to the point where we took it public. And, and going public's really interesting because there's so many things that you read about how wonderful it is. But the truth of the matter is the banker is always going to give you $10 less than you actually need. And then he's going to short your stock so he can own you when the note converts. So I walked.
Yeah.
And there you go.
Yeah. Yeah, and I have a similar story after selling my last company to investors. It wasn't public, but it's a whole different game, right?
Yeah. And they're sharks. I mean,
exactly, and it's not.
And they don't care about you.
No, nope.
They just don't. It's just $1 and cents.
Yeah, you're another number on a
spreadsheet. I mean, what really sucks is, Derek, is that everybody could win. And something like this. Everybody could win. Everybody could be profitable. Mm-hmm. But there are certain groups, and it's kind of prevalent, I hate to say it, where they don't feel like they've won until they've totally and completely annihilated the other individual. Mm-hmm. Rather than have a win-win situation, there is a win-lose. Yeah. And I walked for that reason.
Yep.
There you go. And that was 2007. So then in 2000, so I started Yada Yada, which is my one of my agencies, in 2007. And about 6 months later, one of those things is when you're a startup, you have this list of stuff you want to do, and you have to do it. And I never changed over the health insurance, and I was just like on the list to do, but I didn't do it, and I ended up dropping. About 6 months later, really bad, in the hospital for a month, needed 6 surgeries, the whole thing, no health insurance. Ooh. So my net worth went down to negative $400,000, and we lost our house, and it was terrible. And, but I made it, and my kids are doing fine, and, everything ended up working out just fine. But it was really interesting because you said about the local. Well, the reason why I got great at local was really simple. Is that I'm sure I've told you this before, but at that point I had to fire all my technical personnel and learn how to build websites myself and do things and SEO myself and all this other stuff. But one of the things I realized was that there were local businesses that I frequented that I wanted to continue frequenting, and I didn't have enough money to go there. So I went in and bartered. So I went to my favorite restaurant and said, look, I'll get you on the first page of Google on Maps. Feed us. I went to my hairdresser and said, look, the pink in my hair needs some help. I'll build you a website and make sure you're on the first page of Google. And that's how I kind of started the local thing. It wasn't a matter of I thought it was a this, that, and the other. It was a solution to a problem. I was just getting smart about it. And I think I mentioned this to you before. I'm a hacker. I try to figure out how do I make the system work. So that everybody wins. So that's kind of how that happened. And I remember I was generating a lot of leads on LinkedIn and Facebook just with, my posts and this, that, and the other. And a friend of mine had sent me a Ryan Dice video, and I looked at it and I was like, wow, what a smart kid. I'd love to work with him one day. And I got on his email list, and he had a product called Social Media Money Systems. Do you remember that?
Yes, I believe I do.
It was a huge launch. Remember, I'm totally broke at this point. I went from having all this money to nothing. And I watched the presentation to buy the course, and they have three options. Option one is the course. Option two is the course plus the group coaching. And option three, ding, 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 is group coaching plus two personal consults with Perry Belcher, who is, my godfather as far as.
Brilliant. Yeah.
And I had no money, but they had I don't know, 10 pay or whatever the maximum was. And I hit the buy button, and my husband was like, I can't believe you did that. And I'm like, it's going to ROI. And I had my first conversation with Perry, and he was having a reputation problem. And I actually gave him what to do to fix it. And 4 months later, he flew me down to Austin. And then introduced me to Ryan, and that's when I said to Ryan, I'm like, Ryan, if you really want to know what I think is smart, what's going on right now, and I gave him what I was doing on SEO, and I told him that mobile was going to be big. And this is, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago. And very funny that what I gave him on the whiteboard for SEO ended up being perpetual traffic formula, which he hired me to go ahead and do all the coaching on. Mm-hmm. But when I showed him how I predicted MP3 and what happened with emails, and I'm like, mobile is going to be the next frontier, and I was right. Mm-hmm. Because you can't approach local without mobile.
No.
And so at that point they were like, let's do a product, and they put me on their health insurance, and I mean, they really saved my lives. What wonderful, wonderful people. And Mobile Local Fusion was a hit. I mean, it was like a hit record. I don't know, 30,000 copies.
Yeah.
Plus.
It was massive.
Yeah, it was massive. And but the point is that I didn't go out saying I want to learn local marketing. I approached it with, I need to get my hair done this week. If that makes sense.
That totally makes sense. That's okay. So, wow. Okay, and then after that, now last year you did the Traffic Genesis.
That's correct.
And you did that with Mike Filsame and Andy Jenkins. And that's Facebook.
Yeah, it's Facebook. It's actually more than Facebook, because it really shows you. Mike and Andy added a huge amount of amazing content on traffic and conversions. You know what I mean, on conversions, and how do you make that? How do you make people want your stuff?
Yeah.
Because traffic is worthless unless it's going to a destination that answers a question or converts into something.
Yeah.
So, we when we looked at it, we were like, we can't just teach traffic because people will fail.
Yeah.
So, there's that additional component. And, like Andy is just so pro, man. He's the guy behind the Blair Witch Project, and he's you want to, when he started talking about storyboarding this, the first draft was like included, helicopters and stuff. And we were like, really? But he's so inspiring.
Yeah.
Because he's so good, but he's also, him and Mike both are just so smart. So it's just so much fun working with both of them. And Mike has got the biggest heart in the world.
Yes, he does.
And he really does. I mean, sincerely, the bottom of my heart, I see how he is with his family and with us as friends. And, there is no, he's just got the biggest heart in marketing as far as I'm concerned. That's besides, if he didn't market and I just knew it was some guy, he'd be over at my house drinking beer because I love him,
Yeah, no, good. He is definitely a wonderful gentleman and a brilliant, brilliant marketer, right?
Yeah.
And so, okay, so let's dive into the topic of the day, which is Facebook. And, I've been looking forward to this interview because, Facebook is near and dear to my heart right now, as I think it is for most people in the world of online marketing at the moment.
Yeah.
But, let's start at the beginning. We can't deny Facebook's huge. It's not going away.
No.
But every single day, I get offers for the latest and greatest tips and strategies to get, unlimited traffic for pennies a click. And it's kind of like anything in the internet marketing space. You need to sift through the hype to find the truth, right?
Yep, that's correct.
And there's a lot of hype around this. And so Where do you sit today? What is the truth? From your perspective, is it the holy grail of traffic for every business out there? Where does it sit today?
You know what? It really depends on your market. Okay? It's not the holy grail. There's no such thing as the holy grail. If I knew, remind me to show you the Internet Marketing Fairy video. I had men dress up in pink, fluffy fairy costumes because there is no fix. Okay?
Yep.
The Internet Marketing Fairy is not going to come and poof and make it. But here's the thing. Most of your customers or your potential customers are hanging out in this club called Facebook, right? They're just hanging out. They're looking at things. They're interacting with their friends. You know what I mean? They're finding out what their family is doing. And if you know how to target those guys right, it is. But you don't have, and this is where most newbies or even some professional, some really sophisticated guys, really go wrong. And I won't tell you who, but it's a very, very, very well-known marketer that I'm always having, who is one I consult for, and I'm always having to say, no, don't do that. Because this is it. You can't hit people on Facebook, which is a family-friendly conversation place with, buy my stuff, buy my stuff, buy my stuff. My stuff is great. My stuff is great. It's conversation. Okay? It's where you develop a relationship with your potential customer. And if you develop that relationship well, they will follow you from now until forever. But if you betray that trust with schlocky, low class, crappy, whatever, then, you're going to be out of there and you're going to go, why didn't this work? It's really, and it's not that hard. I mean, look, I know you have a family, right?
Yep.
Okay. But when you first met your wife, where did you meet her?
Well, she was actually my vice president of finance in my last company.
Oh,
so
okay. Well,
I hired her. It was a 2-year interview before
okay. That's different. But when you were dating, where would you normally meet? You're really killing my little story here.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Where would we normally meet?
We
where would I meet? Oh my goodness, I haven't actually had to do that in so long. I don't even know in this day and age. You'd probably meet at a local club or on a local event or something like that.
Right. So when you would go and meet someone that way, the first thing out of your mouth wouldn't be "come home with me," right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
No,
it would kind of be like, you have pretty eyes, or can I buy you a drink, or can you pass some peanuts?
Yeah.
Well, how many marketers go on Facebook and ask, their potential customers to marry them before they started dating, or, to go home with them before they had a conversation?
Sure.
And you got to really approach it that way, And I'm not saying it's got to be, a 6-month conversation, but I'm just saying is that you've got a really crowded marketplace. And, it's funny. People say, well, I'm not good at this, or I'm not good. Everybody has a personality. And if you have one friend, then you can do this, right?
Yeah.
So it's a conversation. So you got to approach it that way. Now, I'm not saying don't ask for the email address or don't this, but if you help someone and add value and show your personality, and it is something that the end user finds interesting, you have a follower, and that follower becomes a customer or a subscriber and whatnot. And that's kind of important. I mean, here's the thing. There's one other thing I want to say about this too is you have a fairly substantial email list, right? I would say.
Yep.
What's the highest open up rate you've ever gotten?
Oh my goodness. Ever? Well, let me think over the last year. You're probably looking at ballpark 25, 30, 35%.
Okay. So let's say it's 30%. So that means that 70 out of 100 people don't look at your email, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it just sucks, but it's true.
Yeah.
But if you upload your list to Facebook, you can now communicate with those guys.
Yeah.
So you can get those guys that aren't opening their emails or overwhelmed, you can get in front of them. So, and that's part of your conversation, right? When you email people, it's the conversation. It's not all, it's like, here's some good value. Here's something I thought about. Here's something that's going to help you. Well, you can bring that online,
Yeah.
also. So you're maximizing your points of contact of, those who are potential buyers. And I don't know what the stat is now, but I know it's at least 5 contacts or where somebody's going to buy from you or get
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I know it's changed.
I think the standard's always been 7. Average direct response marketing, 7 contacts before somebody's going to buy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you add that element, you're now narrowing the time and you're becoming more recognizable.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, before we get into some of the actual tactics and strategies, I think I want to talk about the what not to do. And you've already alluded to this, and it's a big mistake that I'm seeing. Yeah, when Facebook first started up, their ad platform, you could throw up an ad and you could just general target it out to everybody, pay a per click, so pre-qualify them in the ad. It was the early days and it was easy, right?
Yeah.
So obviously, it's evolving. They don't allow that as anymore. So, back to what you were saying. You're saying, okay, you can't just throw ads up and drive people to buy your product. Now, right now, one of the biggest complaints is my account got shut down.
Nope.
And, I think every week I hear from people who I tried advertising on Facebook, my account got shut down. And so what are people doing wrong that is causing this?
Well, there's a couple things. One is, and Google's like this too. Google compliance can be a little difficult.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I remind me, Derek. I'll give you my Google compliance checklist that you can pass on. That gives a lot of data of what you can and cannot do.
Fantastic.
But here's the thing. Facebook terms of service is pretty simple. One of the things that they really, really don't like is claims. If you make an unrealistic claim, lose 20 pounds, well, most people won't lose 20 pounds, so that's unrealistic. You'll get your hands chopped off for that. You know what I mean? Same thing with make money, Make money in your underwear, in your sleep. Yeah, not going to work. Be a millionaire, not going to work. But, every one of those things seems to miss the point here, which is, how to help people and start the conversation. If you're going to go broad targeting, what you want to do is find a very engaging photo or content that you will share to gain likes to your page. And then if you're going to sell something or create a lead magnet or something like that, you promote it to the people who already know you. So I always have this 2-piece strategy. If you have the budget for it, is to go for the likes and then promote to the likes your actual offer and whatnot, because you've now got some, they know who you are, and you've got to have engaging content. And there's so many tools like Post Planner is like, I don't know, like $6 a month, and you can go through it and it'll give you a list of pictures and things that have already been shared that actually get engagement. So if you look, I'm actually, it's very funny because I should be a little bit, my brand's kind of interesting, but I'm kind of known for this thing that I call marketing fails. Well, marketing fails are things that just don't work. And they're funny. And people will open up my emails and look at my stuff because I've just found the most ridiculous thing. Like a picture of a Starbucks truck with the door open, so it says sucks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, like, it was just wrong.
Yeah.
I remember I was in Manhattan. I took a picture of something with a portable DNA testing truck. And it said on the side of it, "Who's your daddy?" Like, I couldn't think with it, And so I do my things with humor.
Yeah.
And I push what I'm doing with humor. But that's just my personality. And if, each and every person has their own personality. And like, you'll never find Ryan Dice doing that,
No.
I mean, it's just not his personality,
Sure.
but you'll find me doing it because that's the way I am.
Yeah. So just to highlight a point there, and I think what you just said there was, I don't want people to glaze over that. You're better off if you're going to go out and use the Facebook advertising platform to get new customers, there should be a two-step approach. You shouldn't be pushing ads out to general audiences that aren't connected with you and driving them straight to an offer. You need to engage them, get them to like a page, like a post, like you, and then next step is to some type of an offer. Now, that being said, when you get them to like, are you getting them to like your Facebook page, or are you sending them to content on a website?
Both.
Both.
Depends.
Okay.
Now, let me add one more thing. Facebook has this ability to give you this code, right, that you put on your website. You
Yes.
put it all over your website. And what that does is it actually creates a cookie. It's called retargeting, which means that now that person is in your list. Now, your retargeting list is similar and almost as important to your email list, because that is somebody who's gone to your location, your website, and at least checked it out. And so then you have this list, which is called a retargeting list within Facebook. So if somebody landed on your page, you can retarget them with an ad, right? Or something else. So even if they don't like your page, they went to your website, you can gather that. And you can put that code on your page without spending a penny on ads. You just have it there, so you're gathering this list. And then you can then go ahead and serve up ads to people who've already kind of raised their hand and had some interest. Now, I like to call that digital stalking, and you can get kind of creepy with it, but you don't need to. When we did the Traffic Genesis launch, there was we called it boomerang ads, meaning that they bring people back, right? And we did an ad, a retargeting ad that went everywhere, that anyone who visited the sites, and it was a picture of the three of us, and it says, you've been boomerang, see, retargeting works. And that was really, really effective in getting a lot of sales, because we demonstrated in a very long video of what this was, and then we demonstrated for days or weeks afterwards that they'd see us everywhere. The picture of the three of us doing that, and it really is effective. Retargeting is probably, if you have no money or very little money, then you would just want to do retargeting, just that, and just push ads to people who go to your site, back to your site. Now, and that's the simplicity of it. It's the highest converting traffic you'll have, because it's people who already raised their hand and had some interest. And one other point is that I've been around, as you know, on this internet game for a really long time. Prior to retargeting, if somebody walked into my store, meaning my website, and then clicks that little X and left, I could never do anything about it. I couldn't say, I'm sorry, could I handle, can I help you? Here's a coupon, nothing. Now, I don't lose all that traffic because I can retarget them.
Yeah. And now let's talk about retargeting for a second, just to clarify here as well, because there's kind of different types of retargeting. So what you're talking about is there's two forms. So we can go into our Facebook account, into our ad account, and we can get the pixel and create a custom audience effectively, right? So, which is very cool, because you can say, if somebody visited this page, now they're in a custom audience, we can target to them.
Right.
Now, are you using just custom audiences, or are you also then using a third-party retargeting to go out there and display ads across the different ad networks?
Oh,
as well?
yeah. We use more. There's Site Scout, there's AdRoll, there's Perfect Audience. There's a whole bunch of them. And then, of course, there's the Google Content Network, which is really, really, Google is so light years ahead of any of these other technologies, because they've been doing it for so long. But their rules and regulations are pretty darn tough. So, a lot of guys that are, especially in internet marketing, are just so not Google compliant and never will be, that we can never do that with them. But, it's definitely possible. And if you can and that's why we sometimes kind of backdoor the content network through a service like Site Scout. But just remember, a service like Site Scout, I think, I think they do. I think their markup is something like 800%.
Yeah, it's massive.
It's massive. Maybe even more than that. Yeah. So if you can be Google compliant, that would be the way to do it. But if not, you use one of these other services, and then you can do that. Because if you have a small site, you're starting out, um, your budget's not going to be big. It's just not going to be huge, and at least you'll get that close up that loop of individuals who have expressed some interest. So, I mean, it's like, especially if you're paying for traffic, it just sucks if they don't do something, and you lose them. At least
Yep.
this is a way. Now, I'll give you one other hint as far as this goes. If somebody went to your page and then did nothing, don't send them to the same page. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Send them somewhere else.
Yeah.
They said no once,
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, give them something new.
Yeah.
Okay, so now, and I sort of going off on tangents. And I knew
I'm
we were
sorry,
gonna do
man.
it. No, this is good. I love tangents because this is where we always sort of dig in and find good stuff. Now, with your experience on Facebook, there's kind of different business models, right? So if you're in sort of the information business, which a lot of us are, versus, say, an e-commerce business, how do you approach Facebook differently? If I was selling, widgets versus ebooks.
Well, it's interesting. Well, Facebook has this new type of ad that's pretty cool. It's called a multi-product ad.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have many different items, you can put like 3 panes or more of pictures that go to separate URLs. It's good for split testing too, but for e-commerce, it's great. You can and I've seen some really great examples where individuals have taken a piece of 3 pictures, so it shows across as 3 pictures, or 3 different types of shoes. I mean, God, I am so bad with shoes. Zappos makes so much money on their retargeting with me because I go and I do nothing, and I go, no, I'm not gonna do anything with it, and then they stalk me for like weeks until I buy it. I have shoe trees, okay, in my room that I've actually decorated with because of this stuff. I mean, it works, but nonetheless, yeah, that's e-commerce. When you're talking about information, correct me if you don't agree with me on this, but I think information has to do with trust.
Totally.
So if you're going to sell information before someone's going to buy information from you, you're going to have to basically buy trust, okay, or create trust.
Yeah.
And the only way you're going to do that is with great content and a good conversation, a lead magnet that just knocks their socks off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you've got to date. You've just got to date with them until they're ready to buy. Now, some guys are ready to buy right away. Some guys, it takes a little while to warm them up.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's just the truth.
It's interesting. I think this is a big disconnect that I've seen happen time and time again is people coming from search and then trying to apply how they'd advertise on search directly to Facebook. And on search or pay-per-click, when somebody's actively out searching for something, it's a lot faster to take them over that line to sell. Just doesn't apply the same on Facebook.
That's a great point because really with search, you're talking about channeling existing interest.
Yes.
So I have a problem and I need it solved now. That is a different type of lead than knowing that your guys are really it's like, it's existing interest versus just finding these guys, because that they kind of meet a criteria. So you have to start the conversation because they didn't ask the question. So you're answering a question in search. In Facebook, you're starting a conversation, and I think that's the difference.
Yeah, and it's I think that's where a lot of people have failed coming onto Facebook initially because think, oh, it's pay per click. No, it's not. It's in the sense of it's not people searching. It's not traditional pay per click. So. All right, so let's talk a little bit about, you started to get into ads and some of the new stuff that's happening with e-commerce and creating ads at work. Now, Facebook's giving us more and more options
Sure.
for how we create ads, how we display ads. But God, creating good ads for Facebook can be a real bitch sometimes because 20% text, right?
Yeah.
And it's tough. It is. And my experience, I've tried to do some video ads, right, as well. And honestly, my experience with the video ads is they're not as effective as a static ad with, utilizing the minimal text as well as you can. What's your take? What have you experienced?
Well, it really depends, okay? Like, there was a video ad that I did that really did well.
Yeah.
But it was kind of harebrained, okay? So there was, and I'll tell you what happened. So there was, during the Traffic Genesis launch, one of the things that we struggled with was Mike and Andy being the gurus that they are, that this kind of pink-haired, middle-aged chick from Florida with a New York accent is coming in and telling them what to do, right? So how do we position me as someone that Mike and Andy really, really respect and listen to? And so Andy, being the artist that he is, came up with this great thing, and he's like, okay, I need you to come in the studio and I need you to slap me. And I was like, I can't.
Oh, I saw that video.
Yeah. I'm like, I can't slap you, Andy. You just had a heart attack. I've done a lot of counseling. I can't do this. And so this whole thing, and we had to rehearse it where I slapped Andy. I kind of had to go, hey, and slap him. And then somebody in the office turned it into a loop of me slapping Andy. That ad did really, really well. It showed in the news feed, I'm 4'11". Andy's something. I mean, and me slapping him over and over again. Oh, I mean, I got a few people where people are like, violence is, that you're I'm like, oh, come on. Give me a break,
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, and to that point, I'm not saying video does work, but I think to get video to work, there has to be some kind of instant intrigue while they're scrolling down their page and they see that.
Yeah.
So yeah, you slapping Andy would have got somebody to go, whoa, what's going on there, right? So, okay, so now let's go back to sort of the standard ad, the 20% text. God, what do you do? How do you maximize that?
Well, let's go back to what's the purpose of an ad, because it's the same purpose of what's the purpose of a subject line, right? Okay. The purpose of a subject line is to get somebody to open it up, right? The purpose of an email is to get somebody to click. Purpose of an ad is to get somebody to click, whatever the objective is. So you want to give enough information, but you also want to have a little intrigue and mystery. So that's all, that's all, and you're in a crowded marketplace. So you don't want to do anything that's too much of a disconnect, because they don't like that.
Yeah.
But, instead of using a stock photo, use a photo of yourself, or, you see what I'm saying? It's, and the text, it just depends. I usually look at the landing page and then decide what the text on it's going to be. Now, I use a tool called Canva to do my ads. It's an online, it's really, really easy. You can upload your own images. You can add this, that, and the other. And then I have a tool that I use, which is just a grid. Okay. It's a 5x5 grid. It's just a PNG that I put over it so I can see what the 20% text is, because there's nothing worse than downloading it, uploading it to the grid thing, seeing what's not, blah, 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 blah. If you want, I'll set up, I'll get you a link for that so that your guys can, download that too.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah. And that was my solution to it. And it's so funny, because I've worked with some of the other big Facebook gurus, and I was like, hey guys, you ever do this? And they're like, oh, that's so smart. I was like, it's like, how many IQ points did it take to come up with a PNG grid, that's 5x5? But that's what it was.
Well, I'm looking forward to using it. I've suffered through that upload, download.
Oh,
it's a pain in the ass. Absolutely. Okay, so now let's talk about targeting.
Okay.
All right, because targeting on Facebook, people go in there, they get all excited and go, "Wow, I can target 1.3 billion people or whatever the heck it is now."
China. No.
Yeah. Now, actually, I'm gonna go off on a tangent here. We were talking about Facebook banning people, and this is something that I've lost an account. Lots of people have lost accounts these days.
Sure.
Now, what I've heard, and whether or not this is true, maybe you can validate this, is Facebook is a bit of a different approach to their compliancy than Google. Google has a compliancy team and a relatively large one. Facebook has a very small compliancy team, and most of the penalties they're dishing out are all algorithmic based. And their compliancy team is actually quite small. So if you put something up, it runs for a while, and then all of a sudden it gets shut down. What I was told is this is actually an algorithm that's shutting it down. So I don't know if you can validate that or not.
This is the data that I have. I believe the source is accurate. Your ads, okay, so you have a couple of factors. One is how long has your account been running? Okay, the older accounts have a higher trust score than a newer account. So when you have a new account, you gotta throw a lot of softballs. You can't test something a little too edgy because they'll just say
boom, done.
We don't like you.
Yeah.
And we'll never answer your emails for the rest of eternity.
Yes.
And even if you write me every day and send me candy. But
I got that email.
yeah, I know, me too. And there you go. So that's one thing that you have going on. So for example, so they look at, how many ads have been approved or disapproved. So for example, if you're going to test out an ad and copy, don't go ahead and create 60 ads with 60 different audiences and whatnot. Test it like a $5 budget and see if it goes through and gets approved for you, because of all of a sudden you have a newer account or whatever, and you've got 60 ads that get disapproved at once, you're shut down. But if it's that one and you change it and you're good. So that's your first threshold. Now the second thing is yes, it is algorithmic, and which means that you will also find that your ads will be running for a while and then get shut down. But that's not an algorithm shutdown. What that means is one of the 12 people who run compliance your account.
Hit the damn button.
Yeah. So and from what I understand, it's about once every 90 days that compliance actually, like a human, looks at your account.
Okay.
Now, keep in mind that those humans that look at the account have discretion based on their opinion.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. Because it's not as black and white. Like, for example, they might look at something and say that's a claim, even though it's kind of on the edge. So you have to then go back and forth with compliance and ask for human reviews, and it can become a little bit. But also, you also have to realize, and this is the thing, and when you're talking about humans, now if you've got a human reviewer who just broke up with his girlfriend, he's going to be declining a lot of stuff.
Yep.
And so. So if something happens and you do happen to get a disapproval or a shutdown or whatnot, step back, don't take it personally, and don't assert you did everything right, because I promise you there's something. You know what I mean? And you just got to get that off the line. But it is possible to get a new account. It is possible to get accounts reinstated. It is not like Google, where I have to call my friend and pay $5,000 to get a new account, and that's what it costs. Google to get an unbanned, because Google bans individuals, not businesses.
Yes,
a little different.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, Google built their backs, on the backs of affiliates, and then one day said, "You guys suck. You're all banned for life."
Yep.
Yeah, that you remember that morning, don't
Oh, God, yeah,
you?
absolutely. It was a good, wonderful time in the world of
Yeah. That was
online
0 to
business.
0 as opposed to the other way around.
Yeah, yeah.
But anyway, so Facebook is a little bit more kind in that respect. But
Oh,
there's some, a lot of the terminology is interpretive of, it's under the interpretation of the individual who's reviewing it. You know,
hmm
and so based on that, you kind of got to play the game.
So now I was kind of speculating. I was running some campaigns, and I'd spent about $10,000 on a campaign, and it was I was getting more aggressive with my targeting. In other words, getting more general, reaching larger audiences, right? And when you can pay for a click versus per impression, sometimes that's a good thing. Now, my speculation is that if you get too general in targeting and enough people start hitting the I don't want to see this button
That's
or
correct.
a variation,
Yeah.
that's effectively like almost in the world of email, a spam complaint.
Yeah, that's a crowdsourced way of seeing what works and what doesn't. I'll take it one step further, okay? Facebook now has this thing called a relevancy score.
Mm-hmm.
And it's from 0 to 10, 10 being
Yeah.
the most relevant, 0 meaning you're probably not going to be able to run anything ever again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can take the same ad and copy and landing page, and based on what your target audience is, it can have a 0 and it can be a 10.
Yeah.
So it really has to do with the right audience. Now, look, a lot of people go, well, how do I find the right audience? Well, I could tell you there are so many ways to find the best audience. Like, for example, if you have a retargeting list, you could create what's known as a lookalike audience, where Facebook will look at all the elements of the individual in this one audience and create one that's very much like it. If you do that with people who've already bought, oh my God, it can be amazing. But then
Yeah.
you can also take it one step further, and there's something called audience insights. Have you ever been in audience insights?
Yes.
Okay. Audience insights is crazy. So if you already have your own audience, you can just go ahead and run audience insights on your audiences. And it's going to tell you some really interesting things about them. It's going to tell you how much money they make. It's going to tell you what locations they are, if they're buyers or not. It's also going to tell you what other pages they like. These are all giving you potential other things to test.
Yeah.
It's going to tell you, are they sugar pie babies? There's a whole bunch of like big data information that's all been melded in. It's kind of like Big Brother is not the government, and it doesn't
Yeah.
need to be because they just pay Facebook for the data.
Yeah.
But that from a marketing standpoint is huge, huge, huge. So, so you can look at audience insights and say, my biggest competitor, let's say my biggest competitor is you. Well, I would run audience insight on your stuff and find things about your audience, or you can run Frank Kern, or you can, or whatever it is. If it's an interest and you can find it in Facebook, you can run audience insights and start seeing different patterns, which then will allow you to create audiences to test. And how you can really do this well without getting yourself in trouble is start with a $10 budget. Start with one ad and watch what happens. If your relevance score is low, just shut it down and start with something else. It's really, really simple. Where people get themselves in trouble is that they decided and they just turn the volume up and without testing, and that's where the real problem is.
And it's interesting. I think we're turning a corner with Facebook because they are giving us the ability to really fine tune our targeting. With insights, with stuff like that. So, going out, and I see it, going out and trying to target general audiences without much thought into drilling down is not the best idea.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not going to work. And damn, I had one other thing. Where'd it go? Oh God, I hate that when
Well,
that
but
happens.
there's different ways to scale, Derek, and that's the
Yeah.
thing. Is you find something that works,
Mm-hmm.
you can actually scale it. You're not going to scale it from $10 to $10,000 a day overnight. But
Mm-hmm.
there's a way to do it. I mean, because there are other things. Is you can optimize on a sale or a
Mm-hmm.
conversion, and you can let Facebook go out and find more of those guys for you if you do it right. So there's a lot of ways to do that.
Absolutely. Oh, and it just came to me. And the other thing too that's been a big game changer, and when they launched it, I breathed a sigh of relief, which was the relevancy score.
Yeah.
Because prior to relevancy score, we were just kind of firing blind as to, are they going to see this as relevant?
Yeah.
And so, it's a powerful tool now to say, okay, I've got a good relevancy score. I should be safe with
Yeah,
this.
and there's another thing you should look at besides relevancy score. And when you're creating your own little, Facebook is now great. It allows you to like pick what columns are in your reports.
Mm-hmm.
Also add positive feedback and negative feedback, because you will see that a lot of times, you can have a relevancy score of 10, and you can have high positive feedback and high negative feedback. So you really want to, you could have a relevancy score of 5, and you'll see that you'll probably have higher negative feedback. So you really want to look at what your feedback score is,
Got it.
because they won't tell you who, but
Yeah.
they'll tell you if it's high or low, and
Yeah.
and you want to look at the positive and the negative.
Right. Right. Wow, guy, we've drilled down. There's been so much good content that has just come out of you. I hope everybody's taking a lot of notes as they're listening to this. All right, so that was totally off on a side tangent.
Yep.
Now I'm going to bring us back to the path that we were going on, and now, so we've talked about ads, we've talked about targeting, right? When we've talked about a whole bunch of other stuff, compliancy. Now let's talk about sales process, okay? And we've been sort of going back and forth on this, and we've drifted in a few times and commented on that. We've talked about you've got to build relationships. What does that look like from a sales process standpoint? How do you take a person from they liked your page to they took out their credit card and invested in you?
Well, I think you're talking a basic ascension model here, right? Where
Mm-hmm.
you start off with, hi, my name is, and what's up and whatnot, and so you push great content on the site. You push great content to your followers that are part of your page. And guess what? If you want everybody to see your content, you got to pay to boost it. So do that. Everybody's like, "Oh, Facebook's making me to pay." Well, yeah, Facebook's a business and they want to make money. I mean, just because they went through the crack dealer's handbook of the first hit is free doesn't mean that they're going to do that forever,
Yeah, absolutely. And frankly, from a business standpoint,
Yeah.
I like the fact that I can pay because paying is consistent, paying is reliable.
Yep.
There's no such thing as free and reliable. It just doesn't work, right?
It's like jumbo shrimp, military intelligence,
Yeah, we'll put that in the oxymoron dictionary.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's so true. So okay, so next, well, actually, when we spoke earlier, you said to me, I think we were chatting on Facebook the other day. You said you've seen some really cool stuff that's working really well on Facebook. Some neat stuff that's going on.
Well, you know what?
And I've been waiting.
Okay. So I'm going to tell you probably the easiest way to start engagement. And it's something called a micro commitment, right? A micro commitment is somebody saying yes. They just say one yes. A micro commitment is, they raise their hand a little bit. They give you their email address. You have a really good lead magnet. You have something that solves all their problems and you're giving it away for free in exchange for their email address. And it's basic ascension. So they go the email address. On the thank you page, you would have maybe a $7 offer, just something that would, 7, 9, 10, 20, whatever it is. If it's $1, I could tell you that a one buyer is worth probably 100 non-buyers, in my opinion. And I could tell you because I have a list of 50,000 buyers, and that's why everybody goes, "Why are you always winning number one in the affiliate contest?" It's like because people have already they bought something from me.
Yes.
So anyway, so that's the first thing. But the other thing that's really, really interesting is most people, they want to know more about themselves, okay? They like to figure out. So if you give them what's your marketing IQ? Or I don't know what it is you're selling, why do you have this ailment or this, that, and the other? These kind of surveys where you ask them a question and they have to answer this, and then they go to the next one, and then they go to the next one, and they go to the next one, and they should be done well, and they should be done with where the answer is actually very much set so that when they answer a certain way, the thank you page is absolutely answers their question. But you get somebody to tell you about themselves, and they want to know more, and they've answered these questions, they're committed. So then when you say, give me your email address and then I will give you the results, it's pretty easy. I mean, how many of these things do you fill out on there? What's your aura color, or what makes your uncle look like, your sister? I don't know. There's all this stuff. I mean, just look at what they're doing, and it all works, but they're doing it kind of stupid, and it doesn't have to be that way. So you can really, really put together a good, interactive thing. And that's the thing, because since you're not talking to them on the phone, if you're asking them those questions, you're kind of having a conversation with them, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And that's all I'm saying.
Okay, so and I love that. Well, two things there. First of all, micro commitment. Micro commitment is I think I like that term, micro commitment. Lowering that barrier to entry, getting people to just sort of put up their hand. Now, you talked about a few different things there. You talked about maybe a $7 offer, a $1 offer. Now, when you say micro commitment, are you referring specifically to some kind of transaction where their dollars change hand, or are you talking about just an opt-in even?
I'm talking about any interaction.
Okay.
If they click like, that's a micro commitment.
Yeah.
If they start filling out your survey, that's a micro commitment.
Yes.
They start to become, and it's part of the conversation. Is a sale or an opt-in a micro commitment? I think it's the completion of several micro commitments. I think before you ask anybody for their email address or for to give you their PayPal address or put in whatever, I think that they need to have several. They have to say several yeses and have several agreements. It's much easier to get somebody to agree with you on something if they're shaking their head and they're saying yes over and over again. And so when so it's just a mindset thing, and it's not that hard. Do you like chicken? Yes, great. I mean,
yeah.
Would you like to? I mean, you just get people saying yes, because that puts them in a frame of mind where they're more likely to enter into a transaction. And look, I'm talking about doing this ethically. I'm talking about, have a really kick-ass product. Don't give them schlocky, you're gonna make money in your underwear overnight and on a Tuesday or whatever. I once did an auto webinar and forced myself to go to sleep so I could say I made money while I was sleeping, but it felt so crappy. I was like, ugh, but I just, there you go. Yeah, can't do that.
Yeah.
And be true to your own personality and who you are. You know what I mean?
For sure.
And that communicates. I mean, every person, has something to offer and share to others, and it doesn't matter if they're technical or not. It's just the truth. I mean, people are. It never fails to amaze me how amazing people are. I mean that sincerely.
Yeah, absolutely. And, a lot of people I meet say, I want to do something, but I've got nothing. And once you start digging in and asking them some simple questions, you quickly discover they've got some amazing ability or talent or, there's something
or story.
or story,
Yeah.
people that they can offer to other people, right? Okay, so the one other thing I want to highlight there, and you just gave a killer strategy a few minutes ago when you were talking about creating those, how to engage people, give them something that tells them something about themselves,
Yep.
and that is so awesome because first of all, I know it works. Why? Because they always get me right.
Yeah.
And once you're committed to that process,
Yeah.
you're committed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in just about any niche, you can do that. What kind of dog owner are you? What kind of and you make something up, a survey or a question, and that gives them a response,
Yep.
and that's absolutely brilliant. There's so many creative ways that you can use that. Now, I just want to point something out here because it's a mistake I see people make with things like that. And this goes back to it's kind of the micro commitment theory as well. And that is, people put up these things and they say, hey, answer these dozen questions. And they have this long form and we'll tell you this, right? And people look at that and go, it's too much work, right? So when you're doing stuff like this, you ask one simple question
Right.
and then they hit submit. Then it takes them to the next one. And
there's a lot of stuff that does that, but you want to ask enough questions so that they're committed. At the same time, you don't want them to know up front on one page how far the commitment is. Leave it
exactly,
and
that's
you're absolutely right. And of course, you don't want to go as far as asking for a stool sample.
Yeah, exactly. It's got to be reasonable as well.
Exactly.
And that's absolutely brilliant. So,
Yep.
last question, and that is, in the world of Facebook, what tools do you use out there that make your life easier? I use Buffer app for scheduling stuff like that.
Buffer's great. And oh God, let me find this thing. It's really badass. Oh, it's called Sniply. Sniply is so badass because what it does is it gives you a tiny URL and allows you to send traffic to any other site that overlays your opt-in on the bottom.
Okay. So, first of all, spell Sniply.
It's SNIP.ly.
.ly. Okay. And I'll post a link to that in the show notes.
Yep.
But okay, so repeat that because I'm not sure I totally followed that on the first pass.
All right. Okay. So what happens is, let's say that you're curating really great content, right?
Yeah.
And you have either via Facebook or on your blog want to link to, let's say, the New York Times or something in the Huffington Post.
Mm-hmm.
What it does is that with Sniply, you get a short URL. So it would be like sniply.com/blip or whatever it is. And when they click on that, it goes ahead and shows the New York Times or the Huffington Post in a Sniply. And on the bottom, you can put on the bottom, here's my opt-in. So for more information like this from me. So they get the traffic, but you get all the traffic and the opt-ins and all the benefit for sharing that.
That's brilliant.
Oh, it's badass, man.
That is.
Yeah.
You're leveraging.
Yep.
Oh, that's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge. That's great. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then of course I told you about Post Planner, which allows me to look at other things that are engaging, what's working and what isn't. So it'll help me plan, and it schedules and it plans out because, I don't know about you, but I could get sucked into Facebook all day long, and whatnot. But, you got to maintain. So, you can schedule up a certain amount of posts. You can pull in RSS feeds, and then make a schedule. But the one thing you don't want to make this mistake is if you're posting and whatnot, and people are engaging with you, meaning that they're like asking questions or making some comments and whatnot. Please answer the comments. Please answer the direct messages. Otherwise, you're not having the conversation, and it's ugly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're doing absolutely. Awesome. Okay, so we're running out of time here. So first of all, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that was an absolute. Honestly, I think we probably just covered more like real good stuff in here than, I've seen in half the spam that comes into my inbox that people are charging for. That was awesome. Now, where do people find out more about what you're doing? How can they get in touch with you?
Oh, well, first of all, it's pretty simple. My website is laurabetterly.com. On that is a link to every bit of, everything I'm working on. Well, mostly, unless I forget to add something. But that you can opt into my newsletter there. And then if you want to follow me on Facebook, it is facebook.com/Laura Live. And, it's pretty simple. I am a communicator. And I think where a lot of guys go wrong is not answering communication. But if you send me a direct message or email me or whatever, I'm always answering stuff. So, I mean, it takes a little extra time, but it's because we really care. There you go.
That's fantastic. And I'm going to hit you up for that little link that you're talking about to that grid thing for Facebook. And we'll throw those in the show notes as well as all the links we just talked about.
Awesome.
So people can get in touch with you. So, Laura, thank you very, very much for your time today and your generosity with sharing. That was fantastic.
Oh, thanks for having me. Like I said, I totally and completely, so honored that you asked me and whatnot. Like I said, I guess I'm not trying to be a little fanboy here, but there you go.
Well, thanks so much. And everybody, thanks for listening to the Entrepreneur Ignited podcast. My goal is to give you guys stuff that you can use. It's not theory. It's not fluff. It's not hype. It's real people using these strategies. And, if you never want to miss an episode, head over to entrepreneurignited.com. Make sure you're subscribed there. There's lots of free resources we're constantly adding. And don't forget to subscribe on iTunes as well. So again, Laura, thank you very much. And bye for now, everyone. We'll see you in the next episode.
You're listening to the Entrepreneur Ignited podcast, where we aim to simplify online business so you can make more money. Now, here's your host, Derek Gehl.